Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip. And with me today, I have the wonderful Karen Rudolf. Karen is a transformative life strategist, a catalyst for change, and a 9X international best-selling collaborative author. Founder of Tranquil Solutions, she's dedicated to empowering personal and professional growth through a holistic approach. And I must say that the W is in quotes, which we'll ask her about that when I'm done reading. She is also the developer of the Tranquil Solutions Clarity Tool, Guided Inner Compass, which uses prompts to support accessing subconscious wisdom, uncover personal insights, and find clarity in moments that matter most. With a rich background in nursing, comprehensive certifications and licenses, Karen specializes in enhancing communication, boosting self-esteem, and fostering that holistic well-being, decreasing stress. Her work shifts perceptions and nurtures resilience and peace, making her a trusted guide in life's journey. Well, that sounds so inspirational. Hi, Karen.
Hi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, why in your bio is the W in quotes? What does that mean?
Because through my own personal journey, and especially starting in coaching in 2007, I found that so many coaches, and myself including, because I didn't know what I didn't know back then, was, we focus on one thing. The client says relationship, let's say, but what they're focusing on is the external relationship, right? They're not looking at the whole, which becomes the W, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, which also can translate to mind, body, spirit. So when I started looking at people as whole human beings, I was able to see it a whole lot clearer, and it shifted my whole perception. So I was then able to teach others to fish, so to speak, and empower them to empower themselves.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. So talk to me a little bit about how you came to be called on this journey. Where you, in your bio, it said that you were a nurse, you're in the nursing industry. So that's quite a little bit different, I'm guessing, than what you're doing now. So can you talk about that transition and what sparked that?
Yeah, it is part of what I'm doing now in essence, but it's not. So it's different. But what sparked it in particular was, as a kid growing up, kids are to be seen, not heard, that translates to whatever we make it mean as children. And then fast forward into my nursing career, I had a patient that was being discharged, and I looked at the scripts that the doctor was sending home with that patient, and I said, wait a minute, time out. Like, you're masking the symptoms. Why, kind of thing. And he was like, shut up and, do your job. And I thought, no, this isn't working for me. There's a gap there. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it back in the day. And of course, I was in my 20s back then.
Okay.
Early. And fast forward, I was going through a divorce at the time, 3 young children, and my mother was a hypochondriac, and I'm a product of my mother, right? We're a product of our environments until we choose to change the whole scenario. So being not enough and considering myself stupid and not worthy and all of the things that go along with that, my mother at 72 years of age decided to take on painting, and she had no one to show her paintings to. She was 2.5 hours away from me. She was far away from my brother. And she went to the doctor with a migraine, and she would bring her paintings with her. And the nurses would, ooh, this is fabulous. And then 2 weeks later, they'd give her a script for the migraine and mask the symptoms, right? And then 2 weeks later, she'd create another art piece. She'd call them up. Oh, the medication you gave me made me nauseous. Well, come on in and we'll give you something for it. Oh, all your paintings are great. Well, needless to say, one day I didn't hear from my mom, and the next day I didn't hear from her. And I'm like, what's
Ah,
wrong with that picture? So I called her, and she was slurring her words. I dropped everything, got a sitter, went 2.5 hours to her house, and found her in a fetal position on the floor. And I said, no, no, not on my watch. She had
ah,
19 patients around her. And I said, the buck stops here. And that's when I chose to become a catalyst for change. And
wow.
actually, it started slightly before then, because in the midst of all of that, 2 weeks before I found my mom, my horse got struck by lightning. I live in Sarasota, I have horses, thus part of my logo is because for me, it was a transformational moment. He got struck by lightning. The vet tells me, put him down. And I remember just being an intuitive, closing my eyes and getting really still and going within. And when I opened my eyes, he's inches from my face. I said, no, he and I are going to become catalysts for change. And I was doing a lot of trauma clearing alongside Truman at that point. And then thus my mom ended up getting sick. And I went, nope, definitely that was like the
Wow.
inspiration that created the catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So much to unravel here. But first, I have to say, I love Sarasota. I lived there for quite a while. It is my happy place. So when you just said that, I was like, oh my goodness. So where in Sarasota are you? I used to live on Lido Beach.
Okay. I'm in South Sarasota. I'm in the Gulf Gate area.
Okay, my
And
dad used to live in the Gulf Gate on Kenmore, I think it was called. But
yeah.
yeah, so Sarasota's awesome. So you have horses on your property in Sarasota?
I don't have them in my property. I have it over out by Mayaca Valley Ranches. So
Okay.
it's right up the road. So I got to live in suburbia and then drive to country. Although if you came back and saw Sarasota, it's becoming quite the city, to say the least.
Oh
It's
yeah, I
almost
was there last year. Yeah, I try to go back as much as I can. I still have a lot of friends there, but it's changed quite a bit from
yeah.
when I lived there back in 2000. Uh, when was it? 2008? No, I'm sorry, 2005, six. Yeah, around that area.
Wow,
So,
it's changed a lot since
yeah.
then.
Did you ever go to the Golden Apple dinner theater? No.
Never heard of that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
theater downtown. That's why I used to perform there. So anyway,
I wonder if that became the Florida Studio Theater,
no,
because I
Florida
there all the time.
is right next door to what was the Golden Apple. It's not there anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So I want to talk about catalyst for change. It sounds so exciting and powerful. Can you talk about exactly, for somebody listening that might not really understand what you mean? Can you talk about that a little bit and what does that exactly entail?
So a catalyst for change is a choice. It's a statement and a declaration that I am going to be one of those people, the light bearer, the torch bearer, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be a stand for others to really create change out there in the world. So if you take that inward from a worldly thing, it brings it back to self, because I believe it was Shakespeare back in 1533 in the play Hamlet says, to thine own self be true. When you're true to yourself, right, that's when change occurs. That's when the catalyst begins. So if you have a chemical reaction, you're putting two things together, it becomes the catalyst, right? And you get an explosion or you get something really, really cool, right? So I like to think of things as being very cool. And although it's challenging, and it's not easy to do or go through, the other side is always so much easier. And that's to me where the freedom and peace lie. So being a catalyst for change is being a surrogate in a sense for others to hold the space and teach them how to create the change that they really truly want in their life. And often they don't even know they want it until they start getting a taste of it.
Okay, okay. And so when that all started for you with your mom and Truman, is that was his name for the horse? That's a great name for a horse, by the way. So when that started for you, how did you create a business from that? How did you decide, okay, I'm not only going to help, my mom and myself through this, and how am I going to now help other people? What was it that led you to believe that this was a true gift that you could help other people with?
It's definitely a gift, and thank you for acknowledging that.
Ah,
Because I looked at when I was going through my divorce, I started looking at things that I did that worked for me. And one
yeah.
of the things that I did, especially stepping into a coaching world, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was a
Yeah.
fish out of water starting coaching, but I'm going to be a coach and change the world, you know? I had no idea what I was doing, but what I started doing was I started looking at myself, right? It always begins with self. And one of the things I did during my divorce was I started looking at my strengths as opposed to my weakness. And I started making a list. I took a paper, folded it in half, and I said, yeah, these are all my strengths. What can I create with that? Well, I was doing 6 hours of carpooling, put that on the list. What can I create with that? Taxi cab driver? No, cross that one out. And when I started looking at my strengths, it's like, what can I build with that? I'm always asking, what can I build with that? And I started creating more confidence within myself the more I started exploring. I did an incredible amount of personal growth and development, but more importantly than anything else, which which I felt was a plus coming out of my divorce because I was a doormat. I was a people pleaser and I didn't know any other way of being. I thought that was my identity. I didn't know I could relate it elsewhere. And I ended up taking on communication courses like no, I just kept taking it on as much as I could because there was a threat that my girls could be taken from me if I
Oh,
didn't become a stand for myself. And that was the moment of truth for me where I said, what am I I'm their first advocate. What am I teaching them? What am I modeling for them more importantly? And I didn't like what I was looking at. So when you look at yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and be real with yourself, it's like, okay, that has to go. I've got to change that. So I started doing all that work. And then, because of my nursing background on my strength list, I looked at what were all the gifts that I got from that. Well, they used to float me all the time. I was a float nurse. They'd pull me mid shift and go, we need you over here. And most people don't like that because it's like, oh, it's like messing up my day and, and the complaints would be going. I look at it always as an opportunity because for me, I became the chameleon and like fast forward in life, I can shapeshift in any situation now. I had a major accident in Costa Rica where I went flying off a horse and I'm no stranger to horseback riding. And and I severed the hip ball from
oh my goodness.
yeah, dislocated my back and fractured my right side of my pelvis. And the chances of my perhaps walking again, was what the doctor told me, was going to be, it was going to be very challenging, very slim. And I was like, no, watch
How
me.
long ago was this?
This was 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. So fairly recent. Oh my goodness.
Really with it. But again, right? It's like, what can I learn from this? What's the goal? What I did was as I'm laying there in a foreign country where I don't speak the language, it's like, what can I build? What can I learn from this? What's the silver lining in this? The silver lining is resilience. I created a team down there to get me home safely because I knew I couldn't do it alone. I definitely needed teamwork. So all of the things that I've learned through the years, all the strengths that have carried me through the years took me to that moment where I knew I could face anything and be anyone by creating and asking for what I want and I need. So because of my nursing background, I knew what I was facing. Because of my nursing background, I shifted. Remember, I was saying that the doctor was giving the scripts, right? I was able to shift into a holistic perception. I shift perception for a living now. So when I was creating who I was becoming, there I went to in 2009, it was CEO called CEO Space.
Okay.
And Bernie Dorman came to Orlando, Florida, where I was living. And I had just became a coach a couple of years before, and I'm going to save the world and be the next Florence Nightingale coaching, you know. I wasn't being that in nursing, but I was going to be that in coaching. And
Yeah.
I remember him in my face saying, "What's going to make you different than the 10,000 coaches that are going to be at my program?" And I went splat. And instead of staying on the floor being the victim, I had already learned through all of the growth that I had been doing that, okay, let me look at it from a new perspective, right? Picked myself up the floor, got back to my paper and pen, and I started looking at all my gifts and all my strengths. And I was like, that's what's going to make me different. I am going to come from a holistic, right? Mind, body,
Yep.
spirit. I had educated myself in each of those areas. So when I look at my clients now, I look at them from a holistic perspective, and I come from holistic being well, body first and foremost, because without our health, the rest, it doesn't, what good is it, right?
Right.
Or you can't create an incredible, wealthy, right, background without having your health. You can't create a very sound relationship without first taking care of yourself. So with that, I mean, it just sort of morphed into what I do today as a transformational empowerment coach or guide. Sometimes we get caught up with the labels, but
Yeah.
really I'm more of a guide at this point because I'm teaching others to fish. So this way they can empower themselves to empower others.
Okay. I love that. And so I'm guessing that in so many ways, your nursing, besides the ones that you just mentioned, but also just having that one on one connection with the physically ailing versus now maybe, I don't know if you would call your clients emotionally ailing or troubled. I'm not really sure exactly who your ideal client is, but it's kind of like the same personal connections with people that you were probably had in your nursing, right?
Yes, and I don't call it ailing because we don't know what we don't know. They just haven't learned any other way of being. So
Yes.
we're all, I focus more on the mental and emotional at this particular point in time because your body is always talking. And most people haven't been taught to listen. So when your body is talking and it knocks, you don't listen, it's going to knock harder. You don't listen, it's going to knock even harder. And then you're flat on your butt with broken, hips or diabetes or heart attacks or uh,
Yeah.
worse yet, strokes, etc. So
Yeah.
when you manage yourself from that perspective first, I believe, it seems to me, that the rest just falls into place. So as I said, stress is the number one killer. And if we can manage our stress levels and create more of a healthy, happier, peaceful space within ourselves, when these big stressors come, I can take a breath, I can handle it.
Yeah, stress is a scary thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it manifests itself in so many different ways. It's unbelievable, really, truly.
That's,
So, do you just work with women, or do you work with women and men?
all across my socials, it says women, men show up all the time. I have men clients as
Oh, do
well.
you really? Okay.
People, absolutely. I don't turn anybody away because people are people are people. And something like the new tool that I've just created, it's going to be launched May 1st, the Tranquil Solutions clarity tool is a compass. It's an inner compass. It's not limited to just women. I mean, we all have stops and stucks and need guidance or challenges making a decision or work pressures and then going home and having to deal with life at home and the pressures of that. And most people aren't taught to articulate. they don't know how to really communicate. So we do the best we can with what we have until we learn something differently. So something like the tool is a personal, it's like having Karen in your back pocket 24/7. And you could ask any question you want in that, and you're going to get everything over the last 15 years, the framework that all of the education that I've learned, quantum physics, neuroscience, NLP, there's Jungian psychology in there. There's just everything that I've poured into the framework that's behind the scenes there. So you get more of a personal context when you're asking the questions and getting responses that way.
Okay. Okay. Is that an app or?
Well, it's not an app like a phone app. It's actually attached behind ChatGPT.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
So you have a free ChatGPT. You purchase mine is a subscription base, and then you subscribe to it, and you have me 24/7 on your computer, on your phone, on
Easy.
on your pad, whatever it is. You can ask a question and get a response immediately. And if you're still stuck and stopped, I'm still going to be there. I mean, when people reach out to me on my socials, it's me get answering or responding. It's not my team. And I have a team that supports me, but that's personal for me. I want to be connected to those I'm connected to. And if I don't know something, I'll be the first one to say, hey, I don't know, let's figure it out together, because I have a very curious mind. When I was a kid, I used to play with puzzles all the time. They weren't the flat kind, they were the manipulative kind. So as an adult now, I'm doing creative problem solving, and each one who comes to me is a puzzle. So creatively, I present globally in creativity communities. So to shift perception, so we see things from a broader, more focused clarity perspective,
Perception is everything, right? I mean,
everything.
yeah. I was going to ask you. So tell me a couple of things. I just want to get really granular for a second.
Mhm.
Well, what? So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, Karen sounds amazing, but I don't know if what I'm struggling with or whatever it is something that she could help me with. What? Who would it be, and what problem like would they really be having to gravitate towards you?
But yeah, well, because I'm very spiritual.
Okay,
I've studied world religion. So I don't look at religion as religion per se, and I mean, I believe in a higher power, but I
excellent.
look at everything as energy. So I get more people that are aligned with that thought process, because you're more or less when you're aligned with that thought process, you're going to be more aligned to the holistic context of life.
Got it.
You're going to be more open to looking at yourself really without putting yourself down and being vulnerable. Because a lot of people aren't, because it's like, no, I've been taught this way and it's got to be this way. And it's like solidly. So I seek people who seek me are a little more flexible in their thought, and they get stuck, they're stopped, they're overwhelmed, they procrastinate, they miss out, excuse me, they stress, it's allergy season here.
I know. Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
they the pollen is very high today. Anyway, they stress out a lot. They do everything that everybody else does. So it's not something in particular. I was focusing for a while on women in transition and women in entrepreneurial women who are overwhelmed at work. They live in a man's world, and attempting to be it all for everybody. And then they go home and they've got to play mom, and they've got to play wife or partner or whatever that looks like. And they're stressed out and they don't know how to manage it all. So they burn out really fast, and burnout, remember, creates stress, and stress
Mhm.
creates fails. So there is nobody who I cannot, I've worked with corporate people. I've worked with Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. I've worked
Oh,
with people, so I've done groups and I've done individuals. And as I said, I made a huge difference in the South African school system down there by listening. Most people aren't taught to listen. So I went back the next year with lots of notes and I listened to what their ails were as a community, right? Because it's a community thing in the educational system. And I went back there and I presented, and I had the majority of the people at the conference there in my session. And I gave them tips and tools on how to manage with the lack of whatever they were lacking in. And it was a lot, but it gives them a different perspective because I'm looking at it, I'm not attached to, I'm attached to my clients in the respect that they're my clients and they're my peeps and I like guard
Yeah,
them with my life. But I'm not attached to the situation because not defining who they are. And because of that, I'm able to see things. So I'm very visual. As soon as I start a session with anybody, even South Africa, was mapping it. So mapping creates whole brain thinking. So it takes the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere puts together. And then I'm able to see connections that most people are not between just seeing it and being intuitive. It's like they're talking about a relationship, and I'm like, no, it's over here. Let's explore this. And then the next thing you know, we're focusing over here, and they're like, wow, I hadn't even seen it. So that's why I don't want to limit myself,
right.
but, but to be socially correct, it's women. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I was asking that because I was wondering if it was primarily entrepreneurs or if it was in every industry or every space. So it really can be just about anybody. Yeah.
Everybody stresses. So,
Everybody.
and it's like I give them tips and tools on how to manage the stress. Stress is going to be there always, but how you show up in that, how you choose to respond rather than react to it is going
uh,
to make all the difference in the world.
in a healthy way,
Yeah,
to deal with stress in a healthy, productive way rather than destructive,
exactly.
which
Exactly.
a lot of people do. So
Yeah.
so I want to talk about a little bit more. You had mentioned when you were a kid, and so I want to kind of segue now to the kind of the premise of this show, Born or Made, is do we entrepreneurs, the 1% crazy I call them, are we born with those tendencies? Do they show up as children, or does it sort of nurture, or can it be evolved over time? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And little Karen, what you were like as a kid, did you show any signs that, hey, you're going to be a powerful businesswoman on your own, running your own show someday?
It's so interesting that you say it. And I love the name of your show because it made me smile when I was like, oh, I love that conversation because there's that thin line between born and made, right?
Right?
I believe, and when I'm interviewing and talking to people, I always say, tell me about your childhood. Because if you're living your passion, what I've come to find is most people who are living their passionate purposeful life, it's linked to something that you really loved as a child. One of the things I loved doing was healing plants. And I would bring dying plants back to life. And I would go down I lived in Massachusetts, and at the end of the road was a forest. And there were two bushes that would create like an igloo. And I would go in there with my Barbie dolls and I would take leaves and I would heal my Barbie dolls. So I always knew I was a healer. Is that born or made? Right? So then fast forward. So again, the question is that born or made? I believe we have a lot of that in us. If we choose to see it, right, and it's a choice, then I believe that it's born. If it's made, it could be something that, wow, like I've always known I was a healer. When I was with my former husband, he used to say, Karen, you're freaking me out. Like, turn it off. And I thought something was wrong with me because no one talked about it. But again, if you go back to my previous conversation, I was talking about playing with manipulative things as a child. Like, I'm a creative problem solver today. I have plants all around me. You can't see it. I have a ton of plants. I still love buying dying plants. Yes, I cannot make a living out of doing that. However, I do it for joy now,
Uh,
and I'm still healing. I'm healing people on the emotional and mental capacities right now, but it's not saying that I don't look at the rest of them as human beings, because we're all connected on a cellular level. And part of what the 15 years of my experience that I poured into Tranquil Solutions Clarity Tool is that interconnection with people. Like attracts like. You know, and when I was doing the physical aspect of it globally and bringing the programs around the world, I would say that was as a result of who I was as a child and stepping into my power as the adult. So I believe there's a little bit of both of that there, that it is born, it is innate, and we expand on the growth of it when we choose to expand on it.
Yeah, well, yeah, when we choose to accept it and see it and recognize it, yeah. And that story about healing the Barbie dolls, that's really cool. That's right. And by the way, we're in Massachusetts because I live in Massachusetts.
Oh, I was in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay, far from me. I'm up on the north, Billerica. I don't know if you know where Billerica is, but
I
it's up.
was very young when I left. I don't recall it at all, but I remember that forest so well. That was my safe haven.
Oh, that's so cool.
And to this day, and actually, I'll take it one step further for you as a result of that, right? I found myself in nature. I find beauty in everything as a result of that. And before I do anything, before I get on this podcast with you, I put myself in a nature space. I go outside, I commune with nature and ground myself in nature because nature teaches us the most prophetic lessons, right? So it just all of my programming comes from the concept of nature. If you look at a plant, when you plant seeds, for instance, right, and you don't water it, the plant's not going to grow. What does it need to thrive? It needs
Yeah,
water, it needs sun, it needs, you know, and then when it grows, as it grows, it brings me such joy to see me creating in creation mode. And that's where I start being the creative problem solver. Like, what can I do with this? So,
that's such an interesting, I guess, thing I would say because would you call it meditating when you're out there with nature?
in a sense, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not one to go and sit.
right,
Yeah,
right.
but for me, I find my peace and my inner self and my calling outside when I commune with nature.
That's so cool. Do you have a place in your yard that you're able to do that? Do you have a nice?
I
Uh,
have I have a rather large backyard, although the hurricane has taken most of my green lush away for the moment. So I'm now,
oh yeah,
but I used to live on the river in Orlando in the Wekiva River, and I would commune with the gators and the bears and the raccoons and the deer, and I would call it my night orchestra and my morning orchestra. And the morning orchestra was the birds, and I would sit there and close my eyes and just listen, take it all in and go, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And then at night it was pitch black, and I would hear the sounds of the croaking gators, and it was just absolutely music to my ears. And Mama Bear would come around with her cubs, and I had a healthy respect for all of nature around me,
yes,
but I wasn't afraid of it.
yeah,
So I have a picture of Mama Bear like from here to, like maybe 6 feet away from me. And
yeah.
I would have a conversation like, hey, I just would love to take your photo because I find such beauty in you. I'm not here to harm you. And she would just stand there, pose, and then walk away. And I'd be like, yes.
See,
So
that would be my dream. Like I am such an animal lover, and I joke that when it's my time, it's going to be death by bear because I'm going to want to hug the bear. You
yeah.
know, so that is such a cool story to me because you see these videos on social media about bears coming up to houses and stuff like that, and it's just so awful. Like it's such a big, scary, grisly animal, but yet there's some that are so peaceful. I love that story.
Well, what I found through, again, my own experiences, and I'm not saying all people and all animals, and there's exceptions to every rule, but,
Yeah,
I grew up around horses. So for me, when I look at, people are like, oh my God, my horse is uncontrollable and he's mean and he's biting and kicking and da, da, da. Who did that? when your kid is being nasty and fighting back and
Where does
cursing you out,
yeah,
I mean, who created that? So,
yeah,
we've got to take responsibility for a portion of it. A lot of it with animals is instinctual. Let's not that's mention that for the most part, most animals, their first instinct, like us, is fear, right? What is fear? So if you look at fear, fear is something that we create it to be. Fear is false evidence appearing real, or
of
however
that.
you want to,
Yeah, yeah,
so if it's false evidence, then what's the truth? Well, the truth is something story I've made up in my mind. Well, a horse makes up in his mind. I got my horse at 4 years old, and all I have to do is pick up a whip today, and he's 25 years old yesterday. It was his birthday.
I didn't know they lived that long. That's amazing.
The life expectancy of a horse is 26 years. My other ones have lived to about 38.
Wow,
Good
that's
love and good taking care of them.
yeah,
So, but again, against all odds, they said I couldn't walk against all odds. I'm walking, I'm dancing, I'm doing everything else. So again, the mind is a very powerful tool and has as we choose to see it. But as I said, I could just pick up a whip and he like
yes,
21
yeah,
years later, he's cringing because that memory is embedded in his subconscious mind. What else is embedded in our subconscious mind that we don't remember until something triggers it and somebody's in essence pulling out the whip for us, and then we react to it rather than respond to it and make it mean XYZ, but it doesn't have to be the truth. So often when we face the fears, like in martial arts, they'll always say face the fear. When you
yeah.
face your stranger, your opponent, what's the word I'm looking for? It's in essence deactivates that because they want a reaction from you and you're not giving them the reaction they want. More than likely they'll walk away, right? So the
Uh,
same with the bear. I wasn't a threat to the bear. I got down lower. I mean, she could have lunged at me. I would have been SOL at the time. Okay? But again, when you come from a heart space, energetically, okay, and catch this one, right? Energetically, if you look at life as a magnet, right? We're magnetic beings. We're putting out that energy. We have a 7 foot that's been actually um, heart math um, Doc Childs, the developer of HeartMath. I'm HeartMath licensed as well. He has proven that we have a 7 foot sphere around us. So if I bump into your energy, right, I'm going to take on your energy, like attracts like, right?
yeah,
If I bump into somebody else's energy that's sort of in the negative space, I don't want to take that on. What's going to happen is I'm going to be repelled by that. So the same thing in the animal world. When you're grounded in your peace, in your happy, and you're breathing calmly, you're right. Because what do we do? Automatic nervous system automatically when we're in fear, what do we do? Yeah,
yeah,
right,
right.
right. And I'm exemplifying it here, but animals pick that up instinctually. So if I'm in my palm and my peace, I'm not a threat to them. I lived in a space on the Wakaiva River. They called it the nursery. And Mama Gator literally, again, probably around 5 or 6 feet from me, would have her nest. And I would put my kayak in almost every day and I'd be like, hi, Mama. Oh, your babies are getting big. And thank you so much for allowing me to be in your space and allowing me to travel safely. I so appreciate it. And off I go. She never once lunged at me. She never once I would get gifts from the otters. I mean, it was just such a happy space for me. I miss that the most. That was my happy
I
space.
want to go on an animal adventure with you.
Again, if you go out, I mean, you're in Massachusetts. I don't know how far you are from the water, but I know there are whales up there, right?
Yeah, I'm not
If
far from the water. Yeah,
if you're ever on the water or you're by a pier that has whales close by, if you settle into your heart space with gratitude and appreciation, what's going to happen is they're going to come up right in front of you as opposed to everybody else around you because they're going to be attracted to that energy.
yeah. That is such an interesting way to put it. I mean, we talk about energy and frequencies and vibrations. Like I talk about that with a lot of different people, but the way that you put it to be just in the heart-centered place of peace and love and everything, just so it will attract like. And I love that because it's so true, even on a subconscious level, like an animal. I love that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love doing the work I do, because then I see it when I'm listening to others. It's like, oh, I want a guy in my life. Well, okay, what are you doing to get the guy? Well, this son of a gun didn't da 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 da. I'm like, listen to your energy. Words create reality, right? Abracadabra in the beginning was the word. Abracadabra, here's the magic wand. What are
Yeah.
you doing with your wands? You know, so when you start looking at it from different perspective, that's the whole right aspect of it. It's like, what are you creating? What do you want? Most people don't know what they want in life because they're coming from past-based
Yeah.
experiences that they have no relatedness to. And it's like I'll ask somebody, what do you want? I don't know. But I could tell you what I won't want, right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Shifting
Yep.
perception again. Right?
Percent. Yeah. So let me ask you this. You mentioned earlier with the 7 foot radius around us, right? And the toxic energy. People, you meet people, I'm sure you do for sure. I do too, but not as much, I'm guessing, are the people that are just toxic, consider toxic energy, bad, just draining, right?
Energy vampires, I call them. Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, perfect name. So when you come across somebody like that that's coming to you for help,
Mhm.
do you take them on as clients, even though it might drain, or does it drain you if you were to take some of them on by client as a client, or are you so comfortable in your own heart space that you can work with them?
Well, I am comfortable in my heart space. I could work with them. And I also ask them, are you choosing to be willing to change? Because if you're not willing, then no matter what I do or say, they're going to be in this little bubble as
Yeah, this,
opposed to
yeah,
the expansion. Because what I'm doing is I'm creating an expansion. Don't waste my time. I don't want your money. And don't, waste your own time, because you'll go from coach to coach to coach and not find what you want, because you're pointing the finger at everybody else. It's all them that's not doing for me. I'm paying for this, but they forget three fingers are coming back and they're not being responsible. If they're willing to be responsible, I'll take them on. Absolutely. If they're not willing to choose, and they're not willing to choose responsibly, then thank you anymore, but I could perhaps put you in touch with somebody else who might be willing to take it on.
yeah. That is so funny that you just said you pointing at somebody and the three fingers are pointing back at you. I had never heard that before. And on my last podcast interview, her name is Connie Ann. I don't know if you know her, but she said the exact same thing. And I had never heard that before. And now 2 interviews in a row.
There you go.
Like, I'm wondering if they're telling me something. Maybe that's a,
So in a spiritual
oh, are you there? You're frozen.
biblical,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So um if okay, you're frozen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you were frozen for a minute. That's okay. I'll edit that out. Go ahead.
Okay, so in a spiritual world, I am you creating me, creating you. And everything is a message. So, the squirrels that I see as a message, that squirrel just crossed my path. It's reminding me to stop, play, and look out for tomorrow, right? What does that message mean? So if somebody comes into my space and says something and I'm hearing it 2 or 3 times, that's the message for me. What is it that I need to hear and learn from that? Right? I could choose to learn something, I could choose to just let it go. But again, in a spiritual context, I look at it that way. And that has been what's empowering me to grow and expand as a person when I start listening to the messages
Wow.
and be.
Okay. Yeah. This is all fantastic, by the way. So unfortunately, we're kind of getting to the end of our time together, but I know you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about Born to Rise. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Born to Rise. Forgive me. Did I say? I don't.
Well, it was in your description here. Born to Rise, how the sassy, classy, and badassy path.
Oh, yes. Okay. Forgive me on
Yeah.
that.
What
Okay,
is
I
that
have so
about?
many conversations in a day, yes. So, Born to Rise is really stepping into your greatness. It's learning to step into your greatness in a sassy, classy, badassy way. So, the sassy is learning to build confidence. The classy is trusting your inner intuition, your wisdom, and the badassy is being a yes to those bold ass steps, right? Aligned steps that will take you to where you want to go. And if you start expanding into that space, it then no longer becomes about you. It becomes a we conversation rather than a me conversation. And that's when we start giving back to others, just like as a result of the Sassy Classy Badassy is my program. And what I did was I put that into the framework behind the scenes as well of the Tranquil Solutions Clarity tool, because it's all about shifting perception, seeing yourself in a greater, broader life, discovering your gifts, discovering that you can step into your truth by opening up your intuition and opening up your third eye and allowing things to begin to occur in your life, which become opportunities. Everything is an opportunity for growth. And if we learn from the lessons and we do the self-reflection, I'm a big fan of journaling.
Oh,
Thus, part of that is what's the biggest part of the Tranquil Solutions Clarity tool. And it's not like, oh, I went to the bathroom or I went to lunch with Anne
yeah,
Marie today and we had sushi. It's nothing like that. It's like
yeah.
really getting clear on what the experiences are, reframing what we're making it mean, and looking at it with a new set of eyes and a new perspective that's going to create clarity for you each and every time you want to move forward and do something within your life, which becomes the opportunity. So Costa Rica, in a country that I didn't speak the language, was an opportunity for growth for me, right? My former divorce was an opportunity for me to grow into who I've become today. So everything is an opportunity. So it's shifting your mind. It's a mind shift. I don't want to say it's a mindset, because set is implying word creates reality.
Yeah.
Set is implying that you are set in your ways and you will not move or
Yeah.
budge. Right. So when you're able to shift, you're able to expand and look at life differently and create that happy, whole, peaceful space.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And so, do you have a free gift for the audience listening?
I do. If they go to my website,
Hey,
www.tranquilsoul, and it's SOUL over here, tranquilsolutions.com. For those who can't see it, it's TRANQUILSOUL, because it's mind, body, soul,
yeah,
UTIONS.com. There is definitely a free ebook there for them as well that'll also support shifting. And if they join my Facebook group, I just put up the Clarity Compass. I believe it's going up today, as a matter of fact, as a welcome into the group. So I'm always giving value. I'm always giving back. And as I said, if you go to Karen Rudolf, and Rudolph is Rudolf, I always get it spelled, or both of them spelled wrong all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to Karen Rudolph or Tranquil Solutions, right? Or I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, I'm on pretty much all of the socials. I'm always giving back and contributing. But again, you're always going to get me responding to it. You'll
That's
get more than a heart. You're going to get some context. And if
so,
I don't get back to you right away, it's not you. I'm just busy creating.
yeah, yeah. And somebody wants to work with you directly, they can contact you or set up a call right through the website. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Karen. So listen, I don't know if you've listened to any of my previous episodes, but
Mhm.
at the end of every conversation, I always ask some random questions. Just,
Absolutely.
hey, so you ready?
I'm ready.
Do you believe in Bigfoot?
That's right. That's a good question, because I was doubting it for a while, but when my kids were in Colorado and they're like, "Oh my God, that's like the biggest thing here." Do
Yeah.
I believe in it? I believe that yes, I do. I do, because if
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. My boyfriend completely believes that it's 100% true. I myself tend to be a little bit of a skeptic, but I love to hear people's perspectives. All right, next one. If you could have dinner with any one person, alive or dead, who would it be?
Ooh, um, can I pick two?
Sure. I'll have dinner together.
We'll just have a little community because I have my team, right, that I talk to. And for some reason, I've always been fascinated with um, Thomas Jefferson.
Ah, okay.
Thomas Jefferson for sure, and probably Jesus. There's something in the
I
conversations that, yeah,
Yeah, when anyone asks me that, I always say Jesus too. That's awesome. Okay, and the last one. If you were given the opportunity to travel to the moon, would you do it?
absolutely.
Yeah, no hesitation. Okay, that's awesome. Yep, I wouldn't. I think I'll stay right here. So,
Okay,
but I think that someday that's going to be possible. So that's why I like to ask people, what they think.
absolutely. Everything is an opportunity. What can I learn from that experience?
Yeah, how to be weightless. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Anyway, Karen, excuse me, it has been wonderful to talk to you today. I'm glad we finally got a chance to have you on, and I just can't wait to keep in touch and see what you're up to.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
And everyone, we will see you next time on the Border Made podcast.